Hey everyone, let's dive straight into this explainer and confront the massive economic reality of the artificial intelligence revolution. We're going to set aside all that sci-fi Hollywood hysteria today, and instead we're going to look at the actual hard data behind what experts are calling the greatest economic transformation in human history. According to the International Monetary Fund, AI isn't just a ripple. It's acting like a massive tsunami crashing into the global labor market. Their analysis shows it is poised to impact a staggering 40% of all jobs worldwide in the coming years. Basically, these jobs are either going to be enhanced, made super productive, or just completely replaced. But here's where it gets really interesting for us. That number actually jumps to 60% in advanced economies. Why? Because our economies rely so heavily on complex cognitive tasks. So this shift, it isn't some distant futuristic concept. It is happening immediately, literally right in our backyards. So how do we make sense of all this? Well, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the AI job tsunami. Then, we'll ask if this time is actually different from past tech leaps. After that, we'll see how this is squeezing the middle class, unpack the very real AI monopoly problem, and finally, look at some concrete ways we can fund our future. All right, let's jump right into the first piece of this puzzle, the AI job tsunami, or what many are calling the fourth industrial revolution. The sheer scale of this transition is absolutely wild. Which leads us straight to the big question. Is this time different? We really need to debunk this old economic idea called the lump of labor fallacy. For like 250 years, economists have told us that automation is ultimately good for jobs. But we have to ask, does this specific technological leap totally break that historical rule? The pivot we are making here is absolutely crucial. Think about it. Past revolutions automated physical tasks, right? Things like spinning, weaving, digging. It was all about moving atoms. But the AI revolution is entirely about computational complexity. It's automating our cognitive and intellectual capabilities. It isn't replacing our muscles anymore. It's replacing our minds. To really grasp the speed of this shift, get this. For the past 15 years, our algorithms have become 2.5 times more efficient every single year. They need fewer and fewer computations to do the exact same things, and they are relentlessly closing the gap between human biological brains, which, by the way, max out at around 85 billion neurons, and machine computations. This completely flips our traditional economic model on its head. Historically, humans were the bottleneck in production. Because our labor was the scarce factor, it commanded high wages. But as AI agents start handling both manual and cognitive tasks way faster and cheaper than we ever could, human labor might not be that scarce factor anymore. Instead, the new bottlenecks for economic growth might literally just be physical resources, like minerals and energy. Now, we've successfully navigated massive shifts before. 250 years ago, almost everyone worked in agriculture. Today in the US, it's less than 2%. We transitioned by moving into complex cognitive jobs. But in a post-AGI landscape, once machines actually surpass our intellectual limits, we might genuinely struggle to invent new tasks that humans can do better than AI. There might simply be nothing left to switch into. Let's zoom in from that high-level macroeconomic theory straight into our individual wallets. We need to look at how the polarization of work is directly squeezing the middle class right now. The crucial takeaway here is what researchers are calling the barbell effect, and it's already showing up in the data. On one end, highly paid AI-enhanced workers have more money to spend, which creates a huge demand for low-skill service jobs on the other end. Think restaurants and entertainment. So employment grows at the very top and the very bottom. But the traditional middle-class white-collar workers, they get completely squeezed right out of the middle. In fact, economists are warning of a potential bloodbath for entry-level white-collar workers. Just think about recent college graduates for a second. They're entering a brutal market where they instantly have to compete with incredibly cheap, highly efficient software that can essentially do the work of a junior employee in seconds. We could be looking at the total elimination of entry-level jobs. Just look at the staggering devaluation of labor happening right in front of us. A task like writing a standard essay used to take a human roughly 2 hours and might earn them $50. Today, a system like GPT-4 knocks it out in 20 seconds for under $1. And next year, that exact same computation will cost mere cents. This puts massive, irreversible downward pressure on human wages, simply because the market is not going to pay $50 for something it can get for 12 cents. And hey, before you say, well, let's just retrain everyone to be software engineers, we really need to look at the historical data. Government-funded retraining programs, like trying to turn displaced coal miners into coders, have a truly dismal success rate, somewhere between 0 and 15%. The numbers clearly show that traditional retraining is just not the magic bullet for a disruption of this magnitude. Because retraining isn't a guaranteed fix, we have to zoom out to the corporate level and look at the market structure itself. The big question is, who actually controls this world-altering technology? You see, the true power isn't just in the software, it's deeply concentrated in a physical supply chain. It starts over in the Netherlands with ASML building the incredibly complex machines, moves to Taiwan with TSMC manufacturing the actual chips, relies on NVIDIA in the US for the chip design, and finally ends with companies like OpenAI or Anthropic training the models. It shows that control is heavily concentrated in physical hardware and compute infrastructure. Regulators are getting really concerned about a concept called vertical integration here. If one massive tech giant manages to control multiple steps of that chain, like designing the chips, owning the massive compute centers, and training the models, then consumers and smaller businesses become completely locked into a single tech ecosystem. It drastically reduces competition and gives them massive pricing power. And the barrier to entry? It's astronomical. Training these cutting-edge foundation models now costs in the billions of dollars. This creates what economists call a natural monopoly. We're looking at a market where only a handful of insanely wealthy players can even afford to participate, allowing them to capture huge profit margins, lock in their consumers, and easily stifle any startup competition. So, if we're facing immense job displacement on one side and these massive tech monopolies on the other, how on earth do we fund our future? How do we structure a society that actually survives and flourishes thanks to this technological miracle? Well, the IMF points to Denmark's model of flex security as a really crucial first step. It's a fascinating labor market model. It combines extreme job flexibility for employers, meaning they can hire and fire easily as technology shifts, but it balances that with incredibly robust social safety nets and financial security for the workers while they adapt. But to prepare for a potentially massive spike in unemployment, some experts are saying we need to go even further by implementing a seed UBI, or Universal Basic Income. The idea is to start with something tiny, immediately, even just $10 a month. The goal isn't to live off it right now, but just to get the complex payout infrastructure functioning at a national level before a crisis hits. That way, it can automatically ramp up if huge chunks of the economy get disrupted. If we actually manage to share the immense productivity gains generated by AI, we could transition way past basic survival. Economists point to this utopian scenario known as universal high income. In this era of abundance, the AI systems and robotics generate so much economic growth that our basic material needs are easily met. Human GDP skyrockets, and get this, traditional labor becomes entirely optional. To achieve that kind of abundance without falling victim to corporate extortion, experts suggest we might need a collective nation-state moonshot effort. Think of it like a CERN for AI. A globally invested, highly collaborative project to build these systems for the benefit of all humanity, rather than just relying on a few fiercely competing private monopolies. So here we are, standing on the cusp of arguably the most interesting time in human history. We are entering an era where our biological minds are no longer the bottleneck for scientific and economic progress. But the ultimate question remains. Will we redesign our society to share this miraculous wealth and abundance, or will we allow human labor to become utterly devalued, leaving us equally useless? That is the real challenge we face right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.